Flex your business with an American Express Business Gold Card. You'll earn 4 times membership rewards points on your top 2 eligible spending categories, like transit and electronics, each month, on up to $150K in combined purchases per year. Plus, you can now earn 3 times membership rewards points on flights and prepaid hotels booked on AmexTravel.com. Terms and points cap apply. Learn more at AmericanExpress.com/business-gold. Amex Business Gold, built for business by American Express.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Sometimes the most painful part of getting sick is the getting better part. Waiting on hold for an appointment, sitting in crowded waiting rooms, standing in line at the pharmacy, that's painful. Amazon One Medical and Amazon Pharmacy remove those painful parts of getting better with things like 24/7 virtual visits and prescriptions delivered to your door. Thanks to Amazon Pharmacy and Amazon One Medical, healthcare just got less painful.
I really felt you could see elements of Pretty Woman in Julia Roberts' role, and when she had that lovely black dress on with the bow, and it was so funny.
With the price tag on.
With the price tag on the back, yeah. Which again, isn't that Pretty Woman? Isn't there a bit there? Was so funny when he strangely had a flat tire, and I couldn't quite work out why that had happened.
That's what happened in the 80s.
But of course, but that her thumbing for a lift and shushing her hair up and putting her body out there didn't result in getting a lift. It was like, how did that not happen?
I know. I quite like
that didn't happen actually.
I did as well. I thought that was really good.
Hey everybody, and welcome to this episode of Flixwatcher podcast. Today we're joined by Suzy.
Hi there.
And Sara-Mae.
Hello.
And we're going to be talking about the 80s classic. Well, we'll discuss whether it's a classic or not, Mystic Pizza.
Thank you as always to the mighty people for the mighty, mighty tunes. And thanks to Ben from Rockwood Audio for his awesome editing skills.
Please do remember to write a review and rate us on Apple Podcasts and anywhere you can do where you listen to the podcast, because it really does help us.
And you can join in the conversation with us on Twitter
at FlixWatcherPod and on Instagram
at Flixwatcher. Hello and welcome to this episode of Flixwatcher podcast. You may be able to hear a little bit of noise in the background, so we apologise for that. We hope that it peters out as the episode goes on. But we are here today and we are reviewing Mystic Pizza, and the guests we have in our studio are Sara-Mae and Suzy. And if you would like to say hello to our listeners and tell them about the podcast work you do, please.
I'm the senior producer for a little indie podcast company called Fable Gazers.
And who's I'm?
Me, Sara-Mae Tuson. Me, Julia Roberts from Mystic Pizza. And every year we try and do a different season covering a totally new story. Season 1 won a Britpod Award. So that's great. I'm working on season 2. It's about an underrated author who I love called Jojo, and it's featuring people like Stephen Fry and Garth Nix and Joanne Harris. So
these people, did you interview these people?
Yes, I've interviewed them, and I'm going to be talking to them about Jojo.
Yep.
And then I'm also going to be doing a cinematic investigation tie-in with Flixwatcher.
Oh, are you?
Yeah. I'm looking into why none of her books have been made into films and sort of charting the history of her lack of filmography, should I say.
I have no idea who this author is.
I don't either.
I do, and I can't wait for it to come out. My mum is an absolute major fan of Georgette Heyer, and I grew up reading the books. So when Sara-Mae said she was starting this new podcast, I can't wait.
Well, let's just hope I can. I mean, I'm throwing everything but the kitchen sink into it. It's going to have audio drama segments. It's going to have book club. For people who've never read, I'm going to try and convert new people to this author. It doesn't always work because, I picked people who never heard of her.
What has she actually made any films? Have any films been made of her books?
Yes, one, but it wasn't very successful, and she didn't like it in the 50s.
But Mary Poppins, P.L. Travers didn't like Mary Poppins famously, so
yes,
sometimes they're not the best judge of their films. Is it a bad film?
It's not the greatest example, but it's all right. It's okay.
And who are you?
Oh, sorry. So I'm Suzy. I'm the host of the Casual Birder podcast, which is a podcast about wild birds. Each episode, I look at particular birds, and it may be birds in UK or in Europe. And I've been lucky enough to travel across to the Atlantic to the USA and Canada. And so I include birds that I've seen there too. So far, I'm about 60 episodes in.
Nice.
And I have got so much more to talk about. So I anticipate going for quite some time.
But you, not just USA and Canada, you've done penguins in Antarctica.
Yes, I've been lucky enough to go to Antarctica as well.
I see.
It's pretty cool. I mean, we get to go to...
We went to Latitude.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we went to Suffolk.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, it's not as far as...
No, there were no penguins.
We didn't cross the equator at any point. And there, yeah, like Helen said, there's no penguins there for us to admire. But I don't know, penguins don't seem like birds, but they obviously clearly are. Would they be a standard kind of bird affair? Would people want to go out to spot penguins specifically?
Oh, my goodness, yes, it's really big business. But penguins range around the southern hemisphere. And they have specific areas for specific species. But, for example, you can go to the Galapagos and see a certain species of penguin. There are little blue penguins around New Zealand and Australia.
I've seen penguins in New Zealand.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
So, but penguins, I mean, it's strange because it's one of those things that you're used to seeing as a cartoon or as a chocolate biscuit.
Pingu?
Yep. And if you're young enough to know about that. But to see them in reality is really breathtaking. And obviously I've been very, very fortunate to be able to go and see them.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Near the South Pole.
Not that near the South Pole, actually. We were only
On
as
the
far
continent.
south. Yeah, we did go on the Antarctic continent, but we were only as far south as sort of northern Norway is north.
Okay. I mean, Northern Norway is still in the Arctic
Yeah.
Circle, so
Oh,
it's still,
absolutely,
yeah,
yeah.
so it's still like
We were
a lot further south than most people in the world get to go to.
Yeah,
Okay, we're talking about Mystic Pizza, which is your choice.
it is.
Can you tell us why you chose the film and give us a 2-minute synopsis?
Stop me if I go on for too long. So Mystic Pizza was not my first choice of film to recommend for this show, but quite a few of the other shows that I picked had already been used. But it was a show that I saw. I didn't see this in the cinema. I saw it when it was already out on video. But I was probably about the age of the stars in the film, and it resonated very highly with me. And I've seen it probably only about 5 or 6 times over the years, but I have a really soft spot in my heart for it. And I even went to Mystic in Connecticut when I was over in New England because I'd seen the film and wanted to see the pizza place.
You're quite an avid traveller for your hobbies, aren't you? You go to the podcast festivals across the world. You'll travel to Antarctica to check out little birds. And
Did you have the pizza?
No, we didn't stop. I don't know why we didn't stop.
Is there
It's bizarre.
Is there a pizza place in Mystic Pizza?
There is in Mystic. The travel side has come from my husband, though. I never expected to travel as far as I have or as much as I have. He's the real traveller. It's only in recent years that I've started branching out a bit more for the podcast and for my podcast likes. But in terms of nature, because he's really into landscape photography, that's why we travel.
Nice. Helen, what were your thoughts on Mr. Pizza?
I knew about this film, but I had never seen it. So I was quite happy that you picked it because it gave me an excuse to see it. It's been one of the ones that I was sort of like, I should probably give that a go. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I really liked the 3 main characters in it. Trying to remember their names. We've got Julia Roberts is Daisy.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to ask. We jumped to the synopsis.
I was like, shall I go back to the synopsis?
Yeah, it should. I apologise.
No, it's fine.
Yeah,
okay, so
what happens in Mr. Pizza?
So the tagline for the film is 3 teenage girls come of age while working at a pizza parlour in the Connecticut town of Mystic. And I didn't really feel like that was such a great tagline. I mean, it's not really one that would make you think, yeah, I've really got to see this film. I think the story goes deeper than that. It follows the lives over one summer of two teenage sisters and their friend Jojo, and it opens with Jojo's wedding. Jojo is a modern woman, but trapped in the traditions of her town. And you can tell as the wedding is happening, it all looks very traditional, but she's clearly uncomfortable. And she faints at a crucial spot, and that stops the wedding. And then it kind of follows the fallout from that. And then what the friends all want out of life, and it follows their story through that summer. So Daisy, played by Julia Roberts, is the older of the two sisters. And she is someone who wants to get out of the town, but recognises that her options are limited. And I think she's learned to play on her natural attributes, her beauty, her style, and her sense of what she wants to get. And she's extremely popular with people. Kat is her sister, younger sister, and she's quite bookish, whereas Daisy is flamboyant and will smokes and drinks and plays pool. Kat is much more thinking about the fact that she's got a scholarship to Yale. She's the good girl. She does everything that you would expect a good teenage girl to do, and dresses much more demurely. And Jojo is just an amazing character. She, you think she's going to have this traditional wedding, but she is such a free spirit and she wants life on her terms. And how the three of them go through this summer, influencing each other, trying to find their way in the world, and the resolutions that come out. And it's just a fun film.
And you're saying, Helen, you hadn't seen it before, but it was on your radar? Was it at the time? Was it on your radar during the 80s, or did it come into your radar later on in life?
Later on in life, definitely, probably not in 80s as much, because I'm not a huge fan of Julia Roberts, so it wasn't like I was a huge fan of hers when I was growing up. But I do kind of like films like A League of Their Own, so female romantic comedies like that. But I really enjoyed it, and I think it's aged really well. Like you were saying, Lili Taylor is Jojo, and she kind of rejects sort of the ideas of marriage. And Julia Roberts is really great in this. She's a little bit slutty. She swears. She plays pool, but she's street smart, even if she's not book smart. And she ends up sort of seeing this preppy guy, but she challenges him on a lot of things that in normal romantic comedies the characters might not have done, and it's just really nice. And then also the owner of the pizza place, the famous Mystic, is kind of this sort of mother of them all as well. And she's this woman with her special pizza, with her special recipe, who's running this own business, and her husband is kind of there in the background. So, and you've also got the mother of Kat and Daisy, who she kind of looks like she's probably brought them up on her own, and she works with lobsters feature quite a lot in this. So it's a really kind of empowering film for female characters who have been written really well and don't really rely too much on lazy teenage stereotypes or kind of like the usual stereotypes for films of this era.
Sara-Mae, have you seen this before?
Yeah, I saw it when I was sort of much younger, sort of 9, 10 or something like that. And I just think I saw it on video or something. And I remember thinking quite fondly of it. I really like Julia Roberts in this. You can definitely tell her sort of early star power, because she does, she definitely commands attention. And I was worried, I had that sort of warm, muzzy feeling towards it. And then I watched it again. And I still enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more than my husband did. He wasn't into it at all. I think he found some of the dialogue a bit stilted and things like that. I did like what you were talking about, Suzy. The way that Lili Taylor's character Jojo is kind of flipped the male dynamic. She's the one who just wants to enjoy sex with her boyfriend. She doesn't want to get married quite yet and start popping out children. You can tell that she's quite preoccupied with, having a very set future, which, there's various points. I don't know if she actually escapes that, because she still marries him in the end.
Spoiler alert.
It's
yeah.
all right.
I thought we were allowed spoilers.
You are.
Oh, yeah, good.
Just scaring you a little bit.
So, I really like her. I've always liked Lili Taylor. And I think that this is, and again, these three young women, young actresses really get to kind of, other than Annabeth Gish?
Yeah, he plays Kat.
Yeah, I found her character a bit wet, and also, I mean, I've never seen a more dumpy wardrobe. But I think that was in fashion in those days.
She got the short straw on the wardrobe, didn't she, I think?
Okay, is this the point that I say that I identified most with Kat and her wardrobe was exactly growing up?
Oh, God.
I think it's just in comparison to Julie Roberts and Lili Taylor's characters.
Yeah, those are more my sort of vibe, I think.
Yeah, no, I think so. That was one of the things that I noted was that Kat is definitely, that was me, that I identified really strongly with Kat. However, I wanted to be Daisy. I was just never brave enough to be Daisy.
Oh, really?
And I didn't have Daisy appeals to me far more than Jojo. I now, as an adult, I think Jojo's character is really, really singular. But Daisy was the one that I wanted to be. But I was Kat.
The nice thing about it is the dynamic between the two sisters is deliberately, they're such polar opposites, and there's so much there's often quite a lot of tension between them and strife. And I thought the film brought them together very nicely. In the end, it's kind of, Daisy's able to allow her sister to kind of lean on her without, she always feels she's got a big chip on her shoulder about being the one that's the kind of black sheep, ne'er-do-well, slut on the make kind of thing. And I think, they do that quite well. But having said that, I did find it quite slow this time. There were certain things that I found a little bit like the architect trope, which is like so common in romance novels.
What's the architect trope?
Well, I mean, they talk about this in romance fiction a lot, about how often the love interest their job will be architect. It's one of those things that everyone laughs about.
Can you give us an example?
Tom Hanks, an architect in Sleepless in Seattle, I think. And
the only one I can think of is Tom Selleck in Three Men and a Little Lady and 3 Men and a Baby. But
it's kind of a common one because, isn't it? Because obviously they're kind of fiercely intelligent, but they're also a little bit emotionally
creative.
and
unavailable creative, and have to travel, so they can never they can't commit. And
but okay, what is it? I don't understand how this is a trope. I'm not aware of this. Can you give other examples apart from?
Not watched enough.
Yeah,
I was just wondering.
I'm trying to think.
You two.
Yeah.
You've just given us one, and I gave you.
Yeah, but I think 3 doesn't make a trope, does it?
Well, it's very prevalent in especially romance literature and lots of movies as well, to the point where it's, people talk about it.
I will say the one thing that I didn't think aged particularly well are the male characters in this. I mean, all of them are a bit wet and they're not particularly handsome. I mean, if you were to sort of, fast forward and say like in 1988 what's his name? Vincent D'Onofrio. Was he ever a romantic lead? And like, who is Mr. Architect and Preppy Boy? Because I have no idea who they are. I mean, the only recognisable male actor in it is Matt Damon making his debut in it.
He's like 12.
Yeah, but that was a bit disappointed that you've got these really beautiful women and the kind of men they're sort of sided with are very unremarkable men.
Well, Vincent D'Onofrio looks.
Yeah, I thought he was quite dishy.
Compared to what he's a bit weightier now.
Yeah.
And now he plays the bad guy, the Kingpin in the Marvel TV universe. He looks completely different to what he does now. He looks completely different to what he does in Private Pile in Full Metal Jacket. So he seems to me, I'm surprised he's a romantic lead, but also he seems to me more like a kind of character actor that wants to play these interesting roles. And this is probably I think this seems like a film that he got offered and thought, well, I can do it.
Interestingly, he was the same age as Tim, the architect, even though they're quite different. Yeah. What I did want to say, it's interesting you say that about the looks of the people, because clearly the women were chosen for how they looked. And is that not one of those things, though, that, men don't have to be good looking, that the women do in these films?
I don't know what you're saying about the guys. I don't know. I mean, obviously, I'm not.
Sorry, I think this is a taste thing. They're not my sort of cup of tea, but I did think Charles Gordon Windsor Jr., which is the name of Daisy's squeeze.
Chuck.
I thought he was. I mean, he's quite. I thought he was quite classically handsome. He's not my sort of thing, but I could kind of see people like young girls of that time swooning a bit. You know, had a very chiseled chin. I thought that I could imagine having him on the wall or something.
Have him on the wall,
as it were.
You know what I mean? Like
as a poster. As a poster.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
No, just impaled onto the wall.
Just clarifying.
They were a bit bland. I mean,
Yeah, no, I think in terms of characterization, definitely, I think the women were. Although Bill, Jojo's boyfriend, again, that dynamic was really sweet. The way he was all about like, no, let's go slow. He didn't want to like have sex in their parents' room and whatever.
or on the floor or anything like that.
And so I think they were playing around with that. Although, I mean,
There's a couple of missteps, weren't there?
Yeah.
Because he had that characteristic, but then he after
slut shames her.
by putting info on the boat, and that just
She
felt
lets him have it. She lets him have it.
She
within
certainly
her.
does. Yeah, I mean that's a pivotal part of the film, but it just seemed really out of character for what he did.
Yeah, he slut shames her in such an odd way, but then still says, I want to marry you. Still, I'm doing this because I want to marry you. I'm like, how does that make any sense? I think that for me was like the biggest kind of, what are you talking about? Because I didn't like that role reversal aspect of thing. I think that was really insightful and nice. And hey, why not? And at the same time.
What do you guys think? I mean, ultimately, do you think that she's going to continue? Because at the end, she ends up marrying him, despite the fact she's had all these incredible doubts. So do you think that she is going to go on and just be, one of the old ladies that she sits next to that have gotten fat and kind of like, and popped out kids? Or do you think that she's going to be able to make that role her own?
I don't know. Are we pitching a sequel here? So we return to Mystic in 2020, and Jojo is now running Mystic. She's taken over from Leona,
Leona,
and Kat has obviously gone to Yale.
I mean,
It's
again,
always Yale.
She's studying astrology.
No, astronomy.
So I did that on purpose.
Oh, thank you. Because
well done.
This was one of the things my husband did. Studied astronomy and astrophysics at uni, and I'm an amateur astronomer, and you nearly made me say that. And it's always been that thing. So when that happened in the film, I remember the very first time I saw it, and Jojo says something like, "You're going to be an astrologer," and it's like, "No, don't say." And when Kat corrected her, I was like, yes, well done, Kat. But can I just put two little things in here? I'm so sorry that they put those shooting stars in.
Oh, they're terrible.
And when it got to that one at the end,
That was the peak of 80s special effects.
When they right at the end and they sort of scanned up, and I was thinking, please don't go to the sky, please don't go to the sky, and it went to the sky, and I was like, no, I've made people watch this film. Sorry.
But it was the 80s.
It was the 80s.
It was 1988.
Yeah.
These things, it was acceptable in the 80s.
Yeah.
As an amateur astronomer, though, you know that to represent a shooting star on screen would be pretty difficult.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I sort of question why they actually needed to show it.
True.
I feel they could have talked about it and not actually shown it.
That's a fair point.
People have seen them. But the other thing I wanted to say was about the kind of the way that Daisy called out Chuck or Charlie when he had his hissy fit at the dinner, trying to show what a big man he was.
Yeah.
And she knew straight away. I mean, in fact, Daisy was really insightful, although, like you said, she has the street smarts, because all the way through she's been really insightful about people's relationships. She called Tim out really early on and said to her sister, and I thought she was just being mean, but she said to her sister about, oh, really, with the guy you're babysitting for, that's such old hat. It's like the oldest story. And I thought, don't be so mean. But actually she saw straight through it. And the same with Charlie. She knew exactly what he was trying to do when he was like showing off about, oh, you're having a go about these Portuguese girls. It was all him. It wasn't her at all.
And you definitely got the feeling that he, again, I think for the 80s, it was really kind of quite feministy and quite good about these kind of beats where, he's having a go at his folks for being sort of looking down on Portuguese people and stuff, but he's clearly brought her there to piss his father off, and she knows that. And she doesn't put up with it. She kind of lets him have it, as you say, and doesn't, stands her ground. And you kind of get the feeling that for her is a pivotal point of feeling, standing in her own shoes and kind of standing up for herself and who she is as a person. Because you get the feeling that she's, like, the way she talks down about herself all the time, that she's the stupid one. And you can see that, she's got a relationship with her mother.
Oh, that was so touching, that scene. When she tries to sort of say to her mum, I know I'm the rubbish one. I'm never going to do anything with my life. And her mum says, well, I'm really worried about you. And she says, yeah, me too. And I was like, oh my God.
Because until then you kind of think that Daisy's quite hard.
Yeah, that she doesn't care. She'll just.
But actually, she's got this quite soft, and that soft side of her comes out again when her sister's in trouble. Yeah. And her sister's in trouble with youth. I must say, I thought Charles Gordon Windsor Horatio, Jr. was going to be the dick, of the movie, because it sort of went on that trajectory of, yep, he's definitely going to like leave her or do something horrible, and he didn't actually. He turned out to not be.
Well, he did. I mean, the scene at the dining table was a bit horrible.
That,
yeah,
but he lets her. I mean, she lets him have it after that. For that. So we kind of had that resolution of that. And I think they did that on purpose so that you could kind of build up to him again, laying the groundwork for thinking he might be the real bad guy. But the real bad guy turns out to be Mr. Architect, Mr. Fancy Pants Architect.
So when you talked about the architecture trope, for me that was like, it's more like the older man seducing the younger woman kind of thing. That was a bigger trope that I was seeing in that, rather than his job. And I just thought, as soon as they first met, having not seen this film, having not known anything about it, I was just like, ugh.
It was so predictable.
This is exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Wife's away, he's there with her. And it's like, but I didn't really feel any chemistry there, apart from the fact it was like written in the script.
No.
And when they did get together, I just thought, again, I was like, ugh.
Yeah. I was so disappointed in Kat for that, because it was, but I think part of it was that she wanted to be like Daisy and Jojo. Jojo was already sleeping with her boyfriend. Daisy's clearly sleeping with people. There's that scene where Kat is, she's caught up in the romantic feel of having this older man interested in her, but she sees Daisy come home from a night out and Daisy's kissing Charlie. And you can see Kat longing to have that sort of experience herself. And Tim totally abused the relationship and took advantage of her.
Particularly since she was so inexperienced and she was so vulnerable.
And trusting, yeah.
It was really bad. I mean, and he was such a cheeseball. I mean, that ghost story nonsense, I was just like, come on, Kat, really? Are you buying this, Mr.?
But this is part of the point with the casting, I guess. Annabeth Gish has to, and this is a point of casting with a lot of films where you are representing high school people. I don't think that she really looked like she was in high school about to go into college. I think she seemed a bit more smarter than that.
But I think also those horrible jumpers didn't help. She was wearing granny clothes. I'm sorry, Suzy. I'm sorry.
I need to look out some photographs of me when I was a teenager, because I was exactly that.
I don't believe for 1 minute that you ever were like drowning in this kind of like, wine.
I was the stiff. I was the stiff. Anyone will tell you.
I definitely think it aged her up, though.
It did age her up, yeah.
It's very like a sort of what now would be sort of like a middle-aged yachting woman's. I don't know what I'm talking about. I mean, I've never.
But no, I mean that's it. Because when you see the two girlfriends at the beginning coming into the pub, the preppy girlfriends, they're dressed exactly like that with the pearls and everything. Oh, there's so many bits of this I'd love to talk about. And I know we're sort of getting tight on time, but I really felt you could see elements of Pretty Woman in Julia Roberts's role, and when she had that lovely black dress on with the bow, and it was so funny
with the price tag on,
with the price tag on the back, which again isn't that Pretty Woman, isn't there a bit there, but was so funny when he strangely had a flat tire, and I couldn't quite work out why that had happened.
That's what happened in the 80s.
But of course, but that her thumbing for a lift and shushing her hair up and putting her body out there didn't result in getting a lift. It was like, how did that not happen?
I know. I
quite like that didn't happen, actually.
I did as well. I thought that was really good. The other thing that was odd was when she dumped all the fish stuff into his Porsche.
Yeah, brilliant.
And he didn't seem to be that worried about it.
Well, he is super rich. Maybe he can just buy a new. I mean, didn't he turn up?
Been insured.
Yeah. That was such a moment. I was like, oh, I can't believe she's going to do that. Daisy, I really admire her impetuousness.
I know she's really good fun, actually, and it is nice seeing the early, someone who becomes such a big star. And this very sort of, I mean, she's so strong in this. I mean, I feel like she's there, but I do think that does have something to do. One thing the film did really, really well is building a very believable, immersive world. Like I believed in that Portuguese community. I believed in, the relationships between Mama Leone and the three girls. It's easy to become invested because there was a lot. I mean, I personally felt the dialogue could have been a little bit sharper, maybe a few more witty things, something that will make you laugh. But it wasn't really about that. I think it's more about enjoying this relationship of these three women and kind of exploring their sexuality and having their ups and downs and things like that. And I think they did that really well. And there's definitely chemistry between the three girls. I'm not sure about their love interest. But, although I think Vincent D'Onofrio and Lili Taylor had quite a lot of chemistry.
I think they did all right, those two. Before we go to the scores, guys, I can't quite understand what they had against Portuguese people. For me, I've not known if they're a community that have typically been underserved by America. I don't know why they were the posh people were like, oh, these Portuguese.
Well, I think it was also probably more the townie versus the, wealthy people, right? Kind of thing. Daisy refers to herself as a townie. And I think that's what it's about. Any minority will probably just be the one that's looked down on,
Sure.
I think also they are the ones that dominate the fishing in that area. So the preppy style people are not going to be, they're going to be employing those people as their maids, as their housekeepers.
Yeah, and they all happen to be Portuguese.
Yeah.
Okay, should we head to the scores, guys?
So these are our patented Flixwatcher scores. They are all out of 5. You may have decimal places. The lowest you can go is 0, no minuses. And we always start with the recommendability, please.
So we'll start with you, Suzy, as this is your...
Well, on the one hand, I recommended it to you all to watch. So I should be saying 5. But having watched it again, and I probably haven't seen it for about 6 years, so I feel like, I'm looking at it through a different lens, possibly. I think I've actually plumped for 3. I don't think I would recommend it to other people in advance of other shows. I know it sounds awful to go from a 5 to a 3, but...
If that's the score you feel in your heart it needs, then that's fine. I mean, if you'd have said 0, it might have been a bit sad.
You're going to go for 3?
Yeah.
Sara-Mae?
I think I tend to go quite high on things, but I think also 3, because I would recommend it, especially for people who, I love rom-coms, and there aren't that many, maybe this is a romantic drama rather than a
I didn't feel
anyway,
rom-commy about it.
Yeah. But definitely for people who love romance films and particularly 80s nostalgia and Julia Roberts, I would definitely recommend it to them. But that's probably, I would ascertain whether they're the type of person who would enjoy it, first. So that kind of narrows it down a little bit. That takes the score down a bit, because I wouldn't recommend it to just everybody.
So what's your score?
3.
3. Helen?
So I'm gonna go a bit higher. I really thought there was a lot here to enjoy, and I don't think that we've even quite cracked making films that are this female-centered and kind of, for its time as well. I was really surprised by it and enjoyed it a lot more than I probably anticipated I would. And I think if anyone sort of vaguely remembers seeing it or maybe kind of knew about it and had seen parts of it, then I think it's worth revisiting. I don't think it's aged as bad as I thought it was going to. And yeah, some of the dialogue is a bit clunky, and we've already spoken about some of the sort of flaws in the male characters. But I just think the performance from all three of the female leads are just really lovely, and I quite enjoyed it. So I'm going to give it a 4.
Sure. I'm going to go for 3.5. You guys seem a bit harder on us, or maybe we're just more used to films that we're less likely to recommend. I can see why I didn't watch this. I knew it existed. Didn't watch in the 80s, but I don't think I watched any kind of rom-coms in the 80s. Or if I did, I probably wouldn't have understood what was going on or the point of them. So I think I was more comedy and action guys when this kind of came out. I remember Pretty Woman coming out and girls liking it, and me just thinking, ugh.
But you like it now, right?
I don't think I've seen it for 20 years. I don't think I've seen it all the way through, to be perfectly honest with you.
Oh my goodness.
So, Julia Roberts, you can see this is why she became a star. You can see a lot of the kind of tropes. I'm like Helen. I'm not that big a fan of hers. People seem to love her massively. I'm kind of like, yeah. I think this is probably one of her best roles. I think.
I really, really liked her in this, and there's a lot of films that I've seen her in that I find are really, really, really irritating.
Yeah.
But I think this is a very kind of honest performance from her, and less kind of superstar-y.
Yeah, exactly.
She just feels a
At ease with
bit
herself.
real
Yeah.
in it.
So yeah, let's go to repeat viewing score, Suzy.
So the repeat viewing score was based on how often I would want to watch it again.
Yeah. So I mean, given it's an 80s film, these kind of films you may have seen lots of times because you love it to bits, or if it's like a new film, it's like your instinct as to whether you think A, you need to, or B, you will watch it once again.
Yeah, so I'm going to say 2 because I don't think I'm going to seek it out much more in the future.
Sara-Mae.
I think I'm going to give it a 3 again, because I do think it's one of those films that you can rewatch, and especially if you're in the mood for something sort of warm, sparkling performances, that kind of is like it's definitely a feel-good film. And, I do tend to rewatch things if I enjoy them.
Did you feel it was a feel-good film? Because I mean, he had the wedding at the end, but then that was, for me, that was like...
Feel good in a sort of cathartic sense of like they've gone through things, they've come out on the other side,
Sure. She's going to college to settle down with the preppy guy.
You're forgetting the thing, though, spoiler, the weird restaurant critic does come to Mystic, and he tries the pizza.
Yes.
And that's kind of like I
knew that was... I think even...
Did you know that was going to happen from the first... Yeah.
I'd kind of forgotten that they'd mentioned that, and then when he came back, I was like, oh yeah, this is the part of the story where he comes and tries the pizza.
He was great.
That's kind of feel good.
That actor, whoever he is, he was really cool. Like that, he just really reminded me of like Orson Welles or someone like that. This gourmand who's kind of deigning to come and review this little pizza place. So I thought that was quite fun.
Helen, repeat viewing score.
So it is an hour and 44 minutes, which is probably a little bit longer than it needs to be. It probably could be made a bit faster by making some of the dialogue a bit snappier. So I think this is definitely something that if it happened to be on, I would sit down and watch for sure, probably without turning it off. But whether now I've seen it, I'm going to return to it that much, not that sure.
So this was the first time, just to reiterate.
Yes, this is the first time that I can remember seeing it. I don't think I've seen it before. So I'm going to go for a 2 as well on that one.
Yeah, I'm going to go for a 1. It's fine-ish, but I think there's just better examples of rom-coms. If I felt the need to... If I watched another Julia Roberts film and thought she's done better, I might revisit it in that kind of instance. But other than that, I can't see myself coming back to it. In fact, I'm going to go for 0.8.
0.8?
0.8.
Wow.
Small screen score.
5.
5. Okay.
Absolutely worked on the small screen.
Sara-Mae.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm not going to go that just to be 3.5. It definitely works. I'm sure just as well as on the big screen.
Helen.
So I'm going to go with Suzy with a 5 on this one. So I probably say this every time we have quite an old film on that I've never seen before, that it is great that Netflix has all these, films that you may have missed, but you've always wanted to see. This is on there if that is you. And yeah, it really works. I mean, I can't imagine you'd get anything else from it watching it on a larger screen. And I guess for most people, when they would have seen it either, in the 80s, it probably would have been like a borrowed older sister's VHS or maybe late night on TV or something. So yeah, small screen, 5.
Yeah, I'm also going to go for a 5. There's no way I'd watch this in the cinema. There's nothing. I don't think there's anything. It didn't seem TV movie-esque, but it also didn't seem cinematic.
No.
So
it is a little bit TV movie. And the soundtrack, oh my God.
Yeah, so I don't remember it.
Wow.
Really awful.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I had to...
I'm a child of the 80s.
Well,
I was-
No, I'm a child of the 70s.
No, I 100%
Teenager
agree.
it didn't have, like the Breakfast Club has obviously
Yeah.
got the
Didn't have a key song
This
or-
didn't have a key song, and I had to watch it on the iPad with headphones, and I also had the subtitles on, so it came with the subtitles with the songs, and I was like, these songs are awful. They're really bad.
What I was interested to see was the very first song in the bar was, or when it first opened, was one that I knew from KD Lang singing.
Constant Craving.
No,
That's the only.
no, one of her earlier ones.
That's the only one I know.
It's a country one. And I think it was about Don't Let the Stars Get in Your Eyes, that one.
Engagement score, Suzy.
Well, now engagement is how difficult would it be for me to turn it off if I came across it and it was already on?
Well, that's one way you can judge it.
Yeah. So whereas I wouldn't necessarily seek it out, if I turned on the TV and it was on, or I happened to be scrolling through and it was on, I'd absolutely sit and watch it all the way through again.
Okay.
So bizarre, but
And that's a
Make that into a number.
4.
Sara-Mae.
I'll give it a 3. It was quite difficult for me because my husband kept getting up or getting up halfway through and huffing around because he really didn't. It somehow, for some reason, it incensed him. I don't know what it was particularly. And so he kept coming in and like making tea and stuff and huffing about this and that, with the film. So I had to sort of tune him out. But I think I was quite engaged. Yeah, so I would say 3.
Helen.
So the reason I was watching it on a secondary device is because I happen to have the Ashes on the big TV at the same time, so I could kind of watch the film mainly, but also sort of absorb the sport in the background. So I don't. Even
It shouldn't have been the other way around. Because with the Ashes, you get the replays, don't you, when something good happens?
It's something to do with the way that certain devices in the house can only play certain things at one time.
Ah, okay.
If that makes sense. I can't give it, I don't think I can give it anything higher than a 3.5, even though I was fully engaged in the story. With one eye, it has to be 100% to be anything more than a 3.5.
I'm going to go for a 2 here. I was waning. Yeah, I can't really explain that. So that gives us an overall score of 3.26875. At this point, we're going to head to Twitter, where we did, as always, put a tweet out. And we had one response via a friend of Suzy's. Suzy, do you want to read that out?
Yeah, so this is from Kids Dr. Dave, a friend of mine from the Maximum Fun fan group. Maximum Fun is a podcast network, and we've all met each other through our love of those podcasts. And he said, I saw it a million years ago when it was new, mostly to see Annabeth Gish because she was a student at Duke when I was there. I never really enjoy stories where affairs with babysitters are plot points, but it was okay, I guess.
And he gave it...
He gave it 3 stars.
Yeah, which I think kind of tallies with a lot of what us guys are saying here. Yeah, I think that's how for now, guys. Can you sign off by telling us where people can find you online and say bye to whoever's listening?
Well, yeah, thanks all for listening. And if you want to find out more about birds and the wild birds we have both in this country and in America and Canada, and Mexico, which I recently went to, just to throw in another place that I recently went to.
And Antarctica. I don't know why.
And Antarctica.
I don't know why you forget Antarctica. That'll be like top of my list of everyone's been to the other side of the Atlantic, but not many people have been to the southern hemisphere.
This is true.
To the southern Antarctic circle.
Check out my penguin episodes. You can find me on Twitter at CasualBirderPod and on Instagram at CasualBirderPodcast.
Sara-Mae.
You can find me at fablegazers.com. All the information will be there, and all our season 1 is fully available to listen to. Twitter is @Fable_Gazers, and Instagram is @Fable Gazers.
Okay, thank you very much, guys, for coming on.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Enjoyed this episode of Flixwatcher podcast? Why not leave us a 5-star review on iTunes? You can also follow us @FlixWatcherPod on Twitter, and we're @FlixWatcher on Instagram. Thanks as always to the mighty people for their mighty tunes, and Ben from Rockwood Audio for his awesome editing skills. If you're looking to get your podcast edited as sweet as this, get in touch with Ben, and that's Rockwood, ROKK Wood Audio. Tell them Flixwatcher sent you.
You just heard a Stripped Media production.